Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City Council meeting of April 26, 2017. I will call this meeting to order, and we start with a moment of reflection with Kelly Cruz. Please come forward.
Hello, thank you. Please join me in prayer as we just take a moment, Lord God. After a busy, busy day, we still have so much more work ahead. We ask you to calm our hearts and our minds so we can hear that small, quiet, still voice inside of our hearts. Help us to listen to the details that you want to bring to our attention. Please, Lord God, be with us as we speak so that we are respectful and kind to one another. And Lord, as we listen, make us listen twice as much as we speak. Lord, I ask you to be over the firefighters and the policemen and to bless our beautiful city, Escondido. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Deputy Mayor Masson to lead us in the pledge.
Now face the flag and join me in saluting our fine nation. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call indicates that all council members are here. We start with oral communications. First speaker is Patty Thompson. Please come forward. We're going to take the first 15 minutes for oral communications, and the rest of them will continue at the end of the meeting.
Hi. I just want to thank you each for the service that you do for our city. I appreciate it deeply, even though I'm here to talk about some issues. I don't want to be misunderstood that I don't respect you for the time that you put in, because I do, greatly. The city cleanup over at the creek was done a couple weeks ago, and the people have moved back in, and now there's trash again. We do have pictures. I was down there myself. The same people are down there, and the mess is starting to grow. It's actually larger than a couple people my size, and it's strewn about already. There's already shopping carts and trash and people sleeping in the bushes, but the people sleeping in the bushes actually did not stop. When I was down there, the couple days after it was cleaned up, they were still there. Now, the problem, there's lots of problems. Our homeless issue. I read an article recently that you guys were thinking about putting $500,000 into our homeless issues. I don't know what that plan is or was, or if there is a plan, or is you have a plan. I think that was in January that I read that from. But I would like to know, where do I find all these plans? You should be working on something, or you have been working on something for our homeless. I see the problem is that they need a place to go. We don't have enough shelters, apparently. The Sober Center on Spruce was taken away 3 years ago due to the city wanting to use it for something else when it was being rented to Interfaith for $10 a month. That was a step-up program for people who could not go to the shelters, so they would spend 3 days there and dry out. After the 3 years ago, when the city took back the building and did not renew the lease with Interfaith, as I understand it. Maybe I don't understand the program exactly, but this was a step-up program for people who could get help, and it's no longer available. So now we have people sleeping, and probably have been always, in Grave Deep Park, peeing all over the place. The bathrooms are a mess all the time. You can smell them 12 feet away from them. And nobody will use them who wants to use the park. Families should not use the park. I've never been able to bring my children to the park, unless, of course, you guys are having an event. And if in case of an event, you cleaned up the park so that people could come and use it. But on a daily basis, we're paying for this park, and we're not able to use it because there are homeless who are living there who are intoxicated, stealing from each other, making it unsafe.
Thank you,
And-
Ms. Thompson. Your time is up. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Paige Richardson. Is she your daughter? It's good to see you back. Thank you.
You can do it.
You,
You can do it. It's easy.
you're going to be on TV tomorrow, Sunday and Monday.
More nervous.
Hello, my name is Paige. I'm 10 years old. Over 1 year ago, a very brave person, an Escondido police officer, saved my life and my baby sister's life. We were homeless for 3 years, living on every street in Escondido. We even lived a long time behind the police officer safety. Being homeless, we ate from dumpsters. We stole from stores and people because our parents made us. There are so many bad things we saw when homeless. There are so many bad people who are homeless. I know more than anyone what homeless people do. I saw on the news about past homes and wanted to tell you to please save the children. They're like me, and the other people need to go away. Please take them away. I have a great life with my new mommy and daddy, Zoe and Jerry Richardson. I have straight A's in school, and I'm a Girl Scout cheerleader and love to read. My life is great now. Thank you for hearing me, and please save the homeless children and remove the others.
Good job. Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful story. Thank you very much. Chris Wyatt.
First, I'd like to apologize if it makes anybody uncomfortable that I came in full uniform because we are a private security firm, but I wanted it to use this as an illustration.
Can you
Put the mic up.
I
get
wanted
close?
to use
Yes.
this as an illustration of what our company looks like when we're in uniform. We also wanted to use it as an illustration to point that all the officers that work for our company are either current or former law enforcement officers, or at the bare minimum have graduated a law enforcement academy and have their post certificate within the last 5 to 6 years. That being said, speaking to several of the citizens of this city, which I grew up in Escondido. I do not currently live here, but I did grow up in Escondido, and so this city is actually very close and dear to my heart. That being said, after speaking with several citizens here in the city, there have been a lot of complaints that I've heard about the homeless problem within the city parks and other city areas, such as the creek areas, like what Ms. Patty Thompson was talking about as well. We were actually wanting to offer a little bit of an unorthodox solution. We actually want to use this as an opportunity to ask you for a time to come and speak and maybe give a more detailed presentation to the town council of some of our solutions, because we do believe that we have a way that we can assist the city in eliminating a lot of the problems that you are experiencing with the homeless and the transients and the trash and stuff that they are actually causing within the city, and return it to a state where these citizens can actually feel comfortable coming and using the parks again. As an example, we ran some stats. Just since February alone, there were 21 calls, according to crimemapping.com, within 500 feet of this building. Of those, 12 of them were drug or alcohol related. 2 of them were assault related. 2 were sex crimes. There was a vandalism, a burglary. Sorry, I forget a couple of the other details, but there were 21, suffice to say, and all but about 2 of them could be easily attributed to transient populations. That being said, with our company, what we're proposing is that the city have private security actually patrolling the parks, because we can be there 24 hours a day, and we also would work very easily, given our officers' experience level, under the direction of some liaison from the PD. We would actually recommend the homeless outreach officers or possibly even Officer Bond, who I believe is still your PERT officer, if I remember correctly. That being a very easy way for us to liaise with the PD, giving the city extra eyes and ears on the ground in the parks when the PD can't be there. Because while I personally feel Escondido PD is probably one of the best, if not the best, department in all of North County, in all of San Diego County, as a matter of fact, I do feel that no matter how good a police department is, they cannot be everywhere at once. And when you have a lot of problems such as the homeless and things like that causing these sorts of problems, if you can mitigate a lot of the smaller problems before they get escalated to a point where the PD has to be involved, it's going to be a huge benefit. It reduces the need for the PD to come in and handle some of these smaller things that are really, frankly, a waste of the PD's time. I mean, let's keep them on the street where they're actually doing the most good.
Thank you. Just a side note here. Thank you for coming here and providing solutions. Hiring of city employees is under the city manager, so we would appreciate contacting the city manager's office and meet with the city manager, interim city managers, to provide the solution. We don't hire employees or public, but I think the point is well taken. We want the safety of our city is number one, and the homeless issue is one of our top priorities as well. So it's a working on progress, and it is a partnership with a lot of people to help the homeless population get to a regular life. Thank you. Okay, Drew Smith.
Hi there, sir. My name is Darren Smith. I was a police officer for 13 years. I just wanted to give my insight. I don't want to obviously repeat anything that Captain White has obviously said. The first 3 years of my police service was spent actually in a Parks Police Department in London, hence the silly accent. But I have a lot of insight as far as how to deal with these kind of issues. Based on my first 3 years of police service. So I feel like as a supervisor for our company, I can offer quite a lot of good solutions. I did want to just repeat as well, just because it was a little bit quiet, and I just want everybody in the room to hear it. But our company is not your standard security company. All of our people are either current serving police officers or ex-police officers that have served honorably with their department and have left under good terms. A lot of those guys are recently retired. We're not looking for guys that are retired 30 years ago. We're talking about people that have current experience and that their training is up to date. Obviously, they still have to have all of the California necessary guard cards, permits that are required. At the very least, we have military police officers or people that have at least gone through the police academy and have graduated with very high marks. So I did want to just clarify that we are a little bit different. I did want to kind of follow on to what Captain Wyatt mentioned about statistics. Crime mapping is obviously a great resource. I encourage a lot of people to have a look at that, crimemapping.com. But what we didn't mention, or what goes unmentioned, is the things that don't get reported. A lot of things don't get reported, such as calls that police have been dispatched to where the victim is no longer there. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you're dispatched to a call where the response time isn't ideal and people have gone. Therefore, no victim, no crime. Those kind of things don't make stats. The other things that don't make stats is just people feeling uncomfortable. People sleeping in the park, sleeping on benches, a mother and child walking through the park that feels uncomfortable, has to divert, go a different way, not even pass through the park necessarily. So yeah, stats are good, but there is a lot that goes unreported, unseen necessarily, and those are definitely things that we need to consider when thinking about other solutions, and we would like to be that solution. As I say, we're not trying to make a pitch today, we're just trying to get support of the community and look to be part of the solution. We're not trying to replace the police department, but we would like to be there to provide our services when police officers just aren't able to.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Angelique?
We're based in San Marcos, but we cover all of California.
And what is your name? What is your company name?
It's called Wyatt and Associates Protection Division.
Have you been hired by any of the cities in San Diego?
It's looking good for La Jolla Bird Rock, but we're still waiting on that at the moment. But at the moment, it's that's kind of our focus.
We
for our company right now
appreciate you sharing this with the City Council. Angelique Bennett.
Okay, now I'm nervous because there were 3 people here last time I spoke. My name is Angelique Bennett. I'm the proprietor of the local family-owned and operated grooming and nutrition center here in Escondido. I'm here to talk today about morals and laws. We've been told by several council members that Broadway puppies and Escondido pets are breaking no laws. But let's talk about morals. Why is murder against the law? Because it's morally wrong. Why is child abuse against the law? Because it's morally wrong. Why is human trafficking against the law? Because it's morally a law. It's morally wrong. Animals think and feel just like we do. Many of us don't know that, understand it, or feel that, but they do. They feel pain, we can prove that. They have emotion, we can prove that. It is now a federal crime. It is a felony now for animal abuse. NOAA and many other organizations in here in California are trying to stop these predators. These puppies are not being raised in a sound environment. They come to the stores and we make them look healthy and we groom them and we bathe them and we feed them some crummy little dog food and we make them look halfway decent. But see, there's parents, okay? As a parent, if I let my children be treated in that manner, I'm going to be arrested because it's morally wrong and it's against the law. We're asking the City Council to open their hearts, open their eyes, pay attention. This is wrong. California is thinking about trying to enact a law to stop the sale of any kind of puppy if it isn't coming from a shelter or a rescue. I feel that's going a little bit overboard, but because no one on their own is taking this initiative to stop this city by city, there's only a handful of cities. That California is going to step in and just, poof, that's it. There'll be nothing if it doesn't come out of a shelter or a rescue organization, which is good for the puppies, but there may be somebody who wants an apple-faced Chihuahua, and we're going to cut that avenue off. These puppies are not coming from good conditions. They're not. It's just been proven time and time again. There's been expose articles. It's proven. The parents are left in deplorable conditions. And every time a puppy goes out of one of those stores, that's a vacancy. And that's an order for another one of those animals kept in deplorable conditions to be brought into our city, our lovely city that just had a child up here speaking about homelessness. We had a woman who came up and did a prayer for us, talking about our hearts. I'm speaking from my heart. This is morally wrong. And that's why we have city councils and lawmakers to make laws to protect things like that.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. We appreciate it. The next is Laura Hunter. Laura Hunter, please, let's move with the process. This is the last speaker, and the rest would be after the council meeting, at the end of the council meeting, sorry. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Laura Hunter. I'm a 25-year resident of Escondido, and I'm here from kind of a pang of consciousness. I feel like it's very important, especially in these days, that ordinary people need to speak out when we feel like our government is going in the wrong direction. And so I'm here today to express my opposition to the action that the majority of this council took at your last meeting to oppose AB 805 and SB 54. I feel it was important to speak out on this to give a different perspective. I think there are some very important aspects to those bills that you did not consider that have a very significant impact here in our region. AB 805, the Sandag Reform Bill, is extremely necessary. Sandag is an entity that is out of control, is not honest with the public, and needs to be brought under strict accountability and oversight, and AB 805 does that. We have spent millions of dollars on public transportation, and all we have to show is one of the worst transportation systems in all of California. It's hard to access, it's expensive, it's car-centric, it increases toxic pollution, and it's contributing to worsen climate change. We see other cities moving forward to build out and modernize their transit systems, but Sandag, we've fallen way behind. We also need AB 805 because it's good government, and Sandag needs that. It was sensible and smart reform, and I applaud Assemblywoman Gonzalez-Fletcher for her leadership on this. I would ask in this case that the Escondido City Council revise its position to neutral and postpone or pull back your opposition to continue dialogue with the Assemblywoman to see if there's some sensible fixes that you could come to together. As for SB 54, the California Values Act, I would ask the Council to rethink your opposition to this bill. You just heard our police are already very busy. If they become now tied up and entangled with ICE operations, that is going to degrade the level of service from what we have now. I'm very, very concerned about the effects on children and young people living in our city. Do we want them to grow up in fear of the police, or do we want them to feel like they live in a close, supportive community where people are there to help them stay safe?
Thank you. Oh, sorry. You have time. You have time.
I've got my minutes. You will do great damage to our community if you force our police into immigration agents, and you will erode the fabric of our community. I ask you to please revisit and rethink your position on these two important legislative initiatives.
Thank you, Ms. Hunter. We appreciate it. Okay, guys, we're not going to do that. We're going to move on with our council business. So I would like to ask the city manager to give us a quick update on the homeless issue in Reedy Creek.
Well, two situations. First of all, as you know from the speakers, the homeless issue is very difficult. On the one hand, you certainly have a criminal element out here, as you hear from our uniformed folks out there. And then you also have the more sensitive, humane society of the homeless issue, which you heard from the young lady. With respect to our parks, as you know, Lieutenant Varso from the Escondido Police Department joined my office about 2 weeks ago on a temporary assignment. He's overseeing our code enforcement and our park ranger department. The park rangers fulfill that alternative to the police department in terms of patrol, and are working closely with the chief. In addition, we have the bike patrols, and everyone I've talked to and my own observations, certainly at a minimum, Grape Day Park is a much safer place than it was, say, 2 weeks ago. So I think we've made some great strides there. The key is to keep that going. With respect to Reedy Creek, I again encourage everybody in the public to contact the city through the website, through our official channels. Some of us at City Hall do look at Facebook every now and again, but we rely on the official modes of communication for reporting litter and homeless issues. We did receive this morning 2 complaints about the debris in Reedy Creek. It had resurfaced, unfortunately, and that's been cleaned up as of this afternoon. So we try to jump on those things immediately as soon as we hear about them. Those are the impacts of homelessness, and I think we all continue to struggle with the causes of homelessness, and that's an ongoing situation.
Thank you, Mr. Appender. Also, the homelessness is a county-wide, statewide issue. Every city is dealing with it, so we have to do our best. Okay, we move on to consent calendar. Yes.
Just real quick. I'd like to welcome some special guests to our council meeting. You folks are from Escondido High School.
Excellent.
Government class.
Welcome. Okay. Welcome to your city hall. Okay, great. Okay. Now that deserves an applaud. Okay. All right. Move on to consent calendar. I would like to remove, item 11 has been removed from the consent calendar because the project has been completed. So I would like to pull item 3. And anything else, council, to be pulled?
Number 9.
Number 9.
Just for discussion.
Okay. I did. Okay. All right. A motion to approve the remainder without item 11. Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Morasco, second by Councilmember Diaz, I believe. Please vote.
Who's running the show over there?
5 yes votes.
Excellent. I did remove item 9. Let me get to it. Sorry.
Minutes?
The minutes?
Did you mean 9?
No, I'm sorry, I meant 9. Just for correction, item 9, that Councilmember Gallo as well, he pulled it.
Move approval of item 3.
Okay, I have a motion to approve item 3. I have a second by Councilmember Diaz. Please vote.
No, this is saying 9. This is supposed to say 3.
No, 3.
Yep, back. 3.
Can't vote.
There we go.
Sorry about the
I
confusion.
I was very intrigued about what you were going
What's in the
to.
minutes?
Okay.
Item.
No, just item 9.
I voted anyway.
John?
5 yes votes.
Thank you. I just want to look at this mobile radio. I think item 9 is approval to fund the next generation regional communication system, NEXTGEN RCS infrastructure, radios and support devices, authorizing a lease purchase agreement and budget adjustment. We're talking about $2.86 million of expenditures here. And out of that, we have almost $660,000 in our development impact fee. So we are financing $2.2 million annually to fund that system. So I just want to understand from our city manager or whoever that we did sign a contract with the county to participate in this regional communication system. And I believe I see the value of it to be a part of a regional communication system, but it's a lot of money as well, $2.2 million, $2.8 million. And we are financing the rest at 2.79%, which is a very favorable interest rate. But I just want to make sure that the public safety make the case for us.
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor, City Council. My name is Jay Petrick, Assistant City Manager. This is a continuation of an action the Council took back in February of 2014 for the NEXTGEN RCS system. And what that system involves is the backbone system, which all 50 agencies participate in funding, and that installs various equipment around the county to facilitate the communication amongst all those departments during emergency situations and non-emergency situations. And part of the budget adjustment goes toward paying for that our portion of that backbone system, as well as the second component of the system, which is the mobile and portable radios and other support devices that are needed for our local law enforcement agencies and other personnel in the non-safety departments to use here within the city of Escondido. So totaling out of both the backbone system and the radios and portable devices, it's a $6.8 million expenditure that will last the city for a 20-year program. And in the staff report, I detailed out that based on our current population, it comes down to basically $2.30 per person per year over the 20-year program. And these radio and portable devices have a 20-year lifespan, so while they are rather expensive per device, they have a 20-year lifespan, and we have current radios that we have in operation for the RCS system that have been in place for the 20 years. So we know that this is a program that will last.
So the next question is, I know I am a former IBM guy. I don't know how the technology can last 20 years. It's not realistic. Motorola, I think probably 3 or 4 years we're going to have a different system. So I understand that the city is committed to be a part of this because we need to be a part of the regional communication system. But you said it's $8 million, the total?
Correct. If you look at the bottom of the first page, it's
right.
$6.8 million to fund both the devices, the portable and mobile
right.
radios, as well as our portion of the backbone system that the entire
right.
region.
And also we're buying 537 portable and mobile Motorola radios.
Correct.
537, so it's every city employee would have one?
No, this is
just
spread
about
across our fire and police departments, as well as our utilities, code enforcement, and streets and maintenance staff.
So why are we buying 537 of them?
We need.
We have that many. It's basically one per employee, but we have some that are sharing. So it is based on need. We've had each department go through the specific needs, and they very judiciously and conservatively determine the amount of equipment needed, knowing the cost involved.
So the $8 million expenditures will not be, will, we,
6 million.
6 million, sorry, 6.8 million, will be spending it over the next 20 years. So I would assume that would reflect an upgrade in technology and software and maintenance, that kind of things.
Well, these radios will be designed to have the software in place for the whole 20-year program.
Okay.
They are very durable. We have radios that have been in our current RCS program that has been a 20-year program that we've had from the beginning.
So the amortization of the payment is at 2.79% is 349,500, but the first payment will be 374,634. Why is it more than the singular payment? You have 25,000 difference.
We have two payments going on here. One payment is for the backbone system.
Okay, and one.
By the full 50 agencies that are part of the NextGen RCS program. That's the 374,000.
Both, for both.
And then we have the other payment for the radios and portable devices that just our staff will use.
It's a total of 724. Two separate things.
It is a little tricky the way that it's
Right.
presented. I had to take notes and draw it, so I get where you're coming from.
So let him. So is it 7? Is it 7 million? The
6.8 total.
6.8 total.
That includes the 2.2.
So 700 and the total of 349 plus 374. That's what we have to pay a year.
Correct. The backbone system is a 10-year plan of
Right.
installment.
Okay.
The mobile and portable devices are a 7-year purchase plan.
So the next question is it in the fire department budget?
Each department's budget for the radios that they need will continue.
Prorated?
Yes, it's within.
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot of money to be spent. I just want to make sure we understand our commitment here for the $6.8 million. Councilmember Gallo, you pulled the same item as well.
Yes. Is there a market for our used ones?
We were researching that, and we were still getting an answer on whether or not those are will have to be returned, or whether or not we can put them on.
Sell them to another state?
I don't believe they have to be returned. We have not been told that in our ordering form.
I don't know how much value there is in the scrap, but we should try to get some money out of the deal. Anyway,
we would surplus them basically, and
that's not my question. My question really is. It's kind of coincidental. Last Thursday's North County Transit meeting, we had one of our discussion items, we actually had a workshop, was system security and emergency preparedness plan and emergency response plan, which involved communication systems between counties, et cetera. In the case of emergency, we coordinate security and emergency management activities with local, state, and federal agencies. Does that, I see our police department in the back of the room. Does North County Transit communicate with the city of Escondido? The city of Escondido, will they communicate with the transit agencies? Will you communicate with, and the question I brought up at the discussion was, how about county to county in Northern California, Southern California? If we have a major catastrophe in the state of California, we have to be able to talk to each other.
correct, and we would use a different radio frequency if we're talking between other counties. So this is basically within our region that this system will operate.
Yeah. See, what I don't want, and I made this comment at the transit meeting, I don't want a situation, I think it was the Witch Creek fire, where we had planes on the ground ready to take off, and nobody knew what the heck to do, and the plane sat there for hours, and the flames just exploded across the county. And then finally, you know, between CAL FIRE, no offense, Chief, CAL FIRE and whatever other fire department was involved, they agreed, okay, I guess we'll do this. You know, during an emergency, you need response really quick, and it has to be same frequency and all the other kind of business. And so that was my biggest concern. The money, we really don't have much control on what the cost is, but I just want to make sure that our security system and emergency preparedness plans are adequate, and we'll be able to communicate whoever we have to communicate with.
Okay, good comment. Councilmember Masson?
Yeah, thanks. I just want to confirm this is $724,000 of new money, new spending that is not currently in our budget, in this fiscal budget we're in, and we're going to spend it in this fiscal budget?
We have a portion of the funds that are the developer impact fee related funds that will pay for 20%
They're already there.
of it.
Okay.
Those are already there in the account.
So the balance is what we're approving to add to our budget?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, Councilmember Murask.
Thank you. So I'm not sure if you know, I'm sure our chiefs know, how many different radio systems we currently employ on a regular basis. I know that fire uses a multitude of different types of systems, correct?
All the same.
What's that? No, they're not. Chiefs or...
Our new chief is ready to explain.
And same with police. I want to know, do you guys just use one system or are there multiple, just one?
Good evening. Well, so for the fire service, we do use multiple radio systems. Our main radio system would be our 800 megahertz RCS system. We use that day to day, and that allows for interoperable communication between ourselves and our neighbors. And we use mutual and auto aid literally every day. For large incidents where we require assets from state and federal agencies, we use a different radio frequency that's common, and literally agencies from around the nation we could talk to on that radio frequency system.
Great.
There's two.
Okay. I was looking in the Carlsbad unit the other day, and they had 3 different systems, and it was for local, regional and state or multi-state use. So we basically have the 2 systems. Okay.
We do have the 2 systems, and remember, it's not just us receiving that aid. We provide that aid. We send firefighters to those wildland fires all over the state, and we use those radios to communicate with other agencies.
We don't talk to Carlsbad.
So then, thank you, appreciate that. Second portion of the question then is, because over the years, I've been on this 6 years, I can't tell you how many times we've approved either grant funding for new radios, replacement radios, et cetera, or actual purchases through budgets that each department has. Is this going to eliminate that now for the course of the next 20 years?
No, as grants become available, we will use that to fund...
To pay for this?
To pay for this, yes.
But we're not going to be purchasing any more radios, systems, ones that are outdated or anything like that, which is what we've done over the past 6 years.
Systems, no. I mean, if a radio gets broken beyond repair, we'll have to obviously replace it. But this is the system that will be in place for 20 years.
Okay. Thank you.
And all the cities in the county are participating in this?
There are 50 agencies participating in this, tribal groups, school districts, Port Authority, all cities in the county.
All the cities? Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Okay, with that.
I had a button pushed. And
Oh,
I just,
okay. We just activated the RTS. Okay, go ahead.
okay. Thank you.
I didn't see the
I
name.
was waiting patiently. So I don't recall if when we made our initial approval to engage in this practice, the county seems to be the primary agency managing, pricing, and then our cost is allocated to us.
Correct.
How is it allocated? Based on population or department use or?
It's based on population.
Okay, and how frequently will that be reassessed? Because it's a $70 million backbone and we're paying based on our population now. Or do we, how do we pay them? We're making annual payments, annual installments.
It's a 10-year installment plan based on the pro rata share that each agency, based on the population of each agency.
The population every year? Or is it a fixed per?
This is a fixed rate per year.
So if we grow, it doesn't matter. If we shrink, it doesn't matter. This is what we're paying every
Correct.
year.
Yeah, the installments are a flat installment every year. Go ahead.
Are you with the security company? You look kind of the same.
Correct on the answer. The backbone system itself is based on the amount of radios that we have. So if Coronado PD would have a small amount of radios, they'd have a smaller price. So they actually put the rate out based on the amount of radios that we have.
Okay, so it's population and percentage of the bandwidth that we're using of the backbone.
Mostly the radios that we have. Every radio we have, we pay a percentage of the backbone.
Okay, that was not clear to me, the formula that would lead to these numbers. So, okay, because it looked like a $70 million project, and we're paying $7 million of it, and it didn't seem quite right. But that's so it's radios and population.
Yes, and the only city that's not in this system is San Diego PD.
Why?
They've gone their own route. We do talk to them. We through our system, we're able to talk to
And
them.
that
They're not
explains
part of
our
this.
high ratio.
Yeah.
And when do we roll this out? When do you have these radios? And I didn't even know Motorola was still alive. So this is how they landed on their feet, huh?
So the system is supposed to go into effect June 19th of 2019.
Okay.
There'll be several, this is a big order, obviously, from Motorola. They're getting orders from multiple agencies. There'll be time also needed to program each device that comes in. We're going to be doing that with local staff to save costs. But the trigger date for when this will actually move over to the new system will be June 19th of 2019. But devices that are installed and ready to go before then can use the new system.
And our own, like, IT staff are going to be managing or supporting these, or do we have to hire somebody to help
We
us?
actually have someone in the police department who is very familiar with the programming of them, so they'll be doing all of the devices. We've gotten a generous offer from a police department staff to do that.
Great.
Okay, I need a motion to approve Resolution 2017-58. Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Masson, second by Councilmember Morasco. Please vote.
Hey, it's Deputy Mayor.
That's right.
5 yes votes.
Yeah, sometimes. Okay, moving on to our current business. Item 12, amendment to Article 70, second dwelling units of the Escondido zoning code AZ 16-0007. Staff report, please.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Honorable Mayor Abed and members of the City Council. My name is Bill Martin. I'm the Community Development Director. So this item is informational for you regarding the accessory dwelling unit ordinance update. And the purpose of the meeting, again, it's an informational presentation only to bring some information to the council. We're not requesting you to adopt an ordinance at this time. We're asking you to review some of the recent changes in state law with us and see how those changes may impact our local ordinance. We're also asking you to hear any public comments coming forward on this topic. And then we're asking you to consider providing some additional direction to us based on those comments and anything else you want us to consider. And then refer this item back to the Planning Commission. So a little bit of background, Escondido already has a second dwelling unit ordinance, Article 70 of the zoning code. Right now that allows accessory units up to 640 square feet in size when they're attached to primary residence in all single-family zones. There's some recent state legislation that's effective, was effective on January 1st that recognizes accessory dwelling units as an important part of housing stock, and then seeks to lower barriers to encourage more production of those units. This is going to require modifications to our local ordinance to bring it into compliance. A draft ordinance has been presented to the Planning Commission, and it's been included into your council staff report as an attachment. So just briefly go through some of the rules or standards. And then in the second column, you see the state law that became effective on January 1st. The third column is our current zoning code requirements. And then you can see that our intent is to change them to the state standards. So we will be introducing a ministerial process for these types of units. We'll be considering a process that gets through applicants through in 120 days or less. As for internal access, right now our code does require a passageway from the primary residence into the accessory dwelling unit. State legislation prohibits that as a requirement, and so we'll be modifying accordingly. Parking, one additional off-street parking space required in the state legislation, although it can be tandem in the driveway. Also, parking requirement waiver, so that parking can be waived if the unit and residence is located within a half mile of public transit, which could include a bus stop. So that's something we're going to have to look at as well. Garage conversions, no setback shall be required for an existing garage that is converted. We don't have that in our code now. Setback requirements when an accessory dwelling unit is above a garage, we'll have to consider that as well. And then the bottom one, garage conversions with respect to replacement parking. Right now our code requires covered replacement parking, and the state no longer allows us to require that. So that's something we're going to have to address in our code.
Before you move on, garage conversions, does this mean that they will be allowed?
The state does allow garage conversions for accessory dwelling units.
So when you bring forward this final draft for us to actually review, that is something we will be required to allow?
That's something we're going to review. What we're recommending, you refer it back to a Planning Commission subcommittee. They've already selected a subcommittee of 3 among themselves. We'll be reviewing that with them as well as the City Attorney's Office, and we'll come back with something for you.
But we don't currently allow it, and we're going to have to consider allowing it. I just want to be clear that that's what this is doing.
We have to consider allowing it. We don't know if we can put any standards towards that yet, and that's something we'll be reviewing.
Okay.
All right. Did you finish the presentation?
Just one or two more slides. So just to give you an update of what the Planning Commission has been doing with respect to this, they did conduct hearings in February and March. They received public comment. All of the comment was in support of accessory dwelling units and increasing property owner flexibility for these units. Commissioners did identify some concerns in the draft ordinance specifically related to garage conversions and parking. They did also agree with some of the public comments requesting detached accessory dwelling units and larger units under certain conditions. And then again, they requested an opportunity to continue working through some of these issues and strengthen the ordinance. So our recommendation is that you receive public comment and then refer this item back to the Planning Commission with direction to form a subcommittee, which they've already gone ahead and done, Commissioners Weiler, Romo, and Cohen, and allow them to continue working on the draft ordinance. We would then take it back to the Planning Commission and then the Council for final decision. That concludes staff's.
Okay. Question at this time because we have public speakers.
No, I want to wait till.
Okay. We'll go. Question? Go ahead. 1 second here. Okay, go ahead.
First, I'll start with a comment that I know this is a draft, but the draft stamp is so fat that I can't read the words behind it. So in the future, like I'm reading a sentence and then it's interrupted. So.
Okay.
Well, no, that was a comment. I'm not done with my questions. So the things I'd like to have addressed at some point, the square footage maximum 640 was proposed, or 640 is what we have on the books. So I'm very curious if you're gathering this feedback for the commission subcommittee. Square footage maximum, stories, when can you build a 2-story accessory dwelling? I'm really interested in the development fees that are going to be charged for these units, if we're going to skip or continue to collect connection fees for sewer, water, if they have to be metered separately from the main home. From the draft of this ordinance, it says the accessory dwellings have to be allowed on any lot size. And I'm curious what happens if there's an HOA that may have. So if you're if your house is in a neighborhood with an HOA and they don't let you build an accessory dwelling, then that is the law that needs to be followed. So this is not a build by right.
Right.
I'm curious. That's what I'm asking. 1 parking spot. Bedrooms. There's under this draft word, it says number of bedrooms, something, something, 1 bedroom shall be permitted. So I don't know what that whole sentence says. If we're going to be limiting bedrooms, or what about studios with no bedrooms? Well, no, the point of a staff report is to make it handy and available, not just to me, but to the public, right? And if I have to go searching for the language, then that's inconvenient and certainly not ideal. And I don't have an iPad, so I just don't have one. I don't have any way right now, right here, to search all of that. And then the other thing is about a separate entrance. If you're doing a garage conversion, do you have to then detach that space from the main house so that it has its own door? Because if you have a separate building, that's obviously the case. But if you're adding on somehow to your house, it has to have its own separate everything. Or do you still have to, do you allow basically an additional room expansion? And then with the dwelling units, bathrooms, kitchen, like what are the minimum requirements to consider it a dwelling unit as opposed to like a pool house or a guest house?
Kitchen.
Okay.
Kitchen. Okay, so those are all of my questions all at once. So if you want to address them, that would be
Let
great.
Mr. Martin address those questions before we go to public hearing.
So those are all great items, and those are all things that we'll be discussing with the Planning Commission. There's quite a few items here. I did write them all down, so that's something we would want to take up with the subcommittee. But as to your question as what constitutes a dwelling unit, it is a kitchen. So you can have a guest house also in some of these same zones, but they can't have a kitchen.
Okay, great. We'll discuss this more because this is an important topic here. I have a quick questions before we go to public hearing. This is under the housing element, right? This is going to be a part of the housing element. My understanding of the housing element and housing allocation, it's just we have to have it in writing as a part of our city policy, but it's not enforceable.
These units can count to meeting our RENA goals. So, and that's one of the good things about this is that we can meet our housing obligations without subsidizing the cost of affordable housing.
So that's good news. So they will go towards our goal of affordable housing. But so the housing element is not enforceable, but this new law will be.
Sorry, I don't.
The new law to meet the state new laws, it's enforceable, but only the housing element and the number of homes we build is not a legal requirement.
Yes, and good afternoon, Council. Mike Strong, Assistant Planning Director. So the housing element is a policy-based document setting forth different programs for implementation. The state law changes that were addressed in Director Martin's presentation are enforceable. Those are legally binding obligations of jurisdictions. So as Mr. Director Martin had presented, the idea is to look at the regulations that are now obligating to the city and come up with the design criteria to make it fit with our jurisdiction. The benefit of counting the units towards affordable housing production transcend those programs. It also will benefit us in future RENA cycles. So when SANDAG allocates a certain number of new housing units to the jurisdictions, we'll be able to look to the previous historical trend of housing production and then forecast that into that next planning cycle period. So it will reduce the obligation for future rezonings potentially. So that is a good benefit to allowing more independent facilities and allowing those production to not only service our population, but also give us a little bit more flexibility in the housing element process.
Hey, thank you. Well, let's go to public hearings. We have a few public speakers. Beth Lauder. Sorry about if I mispronounced your name. No, to the council. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Okay. So I recently bought my house. We bought our house so that we could turn the RV garage into a guest house for my mother-in-law. And I called to start the planning and was told I couldn't do that because detached things weren't allowed. And it was very distressing because that was one of the reasons we bought it, so that she could live near us, because she's not well enough to live on her own, but she's still well enough to have her own space. And I started crying, and I said, okay, what do we do? And she said, well, you could come to the city council meeting and talk to them, and they're reviewing the rules now. So please review the rules, because, I mean, the RV garage is only 10 feet away from our house, and I just want to make it into a guest house so my mother-in-law can live there so I can have my guest room back. So someone can come and visit me once in a while and take care of me when I get worse. If I need to come to the subcommittee planning to talk about it in more detail, I would love to. But there's a lot of reasons why it makes sense to let it be detached. For one, it already is, and I don't know how to attach it to the house. So is there a chance that rules might change? Well, you can't say no, right? Isn't that the rule? You can't say.
I think the best thing to do it is to spend time with our city planning to give you the answers to your questions. We cannot make a policy here. We don't know the details. Leave your phone number, email, and address with the staff, and our planning director will be happy to contact you or someone to explain to you what the existing law is and what the new law is. So Mr. Martin is giving you his direct contact information.
Okay.
And we will be happy to address your concerns.
Okay, because I could give you more sob story, but it doesn't seem like it's going to help this situation. So I'll just talk to Mr. Martin, right? Because you haven't set the new law, right?
Okay.
Correct?
Okay,
You haven't
yes.
set the new law? Okay.
And the answer is eventually, yes, you will be able to. We just haven't refined all this language. So
Yeah.
Okay, so there's my chance we might be able to do that.
The staff will explain this to you.
Great, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
All right, and then we'll go to the next speaker, Doug Schultz.
Good evening, honorable members of the council, honorable mayor. I just wanted to address two aspects, one on accessory dwelling units, one from just a citizen perspective, and also a financial perspective. When I bought my house back, on Grand Avenue in 2012, it was zoned where I could actually build up to 6 units on it. And so what we opted to do was build a unit in the back where my parents currently live. So just from a practicality standpoint, the accessory dwelling unit has been great because we have a very particular zoning where we can build multiple units, not under the same traditional residential zoning code. So just practicality speaking, it's been great. It's been absolutely fabulous having my parents there. We built covered parking, whole 9 yards. So then from the other perspective I want to address is just from a financial perspective. So when we bought our house, the tax appraised value was roughly $250, more or less. And so then we added on the unit, built the unit in the back. Our tax assessed value went from $250 to $465. So from a revenue standpoint, by allowing these accessory dwelling units, by allowing people to do them, it's going to reassess the tax value for everybody, in turn bringing more revenue into the city. So I thought that would be also worthwhile from a revenue standpoint and a practicality standpoint. The other thing I did present to Planning Commission, because right now it's tiered, where you can do a 500 square foot accessory dwelling unit when the lot size is below 10,000 square feet, and then above 10,000 square feet, it's 640 square foot. So my proposal was just making another tier. So above 20,000 square feet, then you could have the maximum threshold. But what that does is it eliminates a lot of smaller condensed housing to mitigate the parking risk and everything like that. But I just wanted to convey those thoughts to you, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Tyler Filan? Tyler? Okay, and Lady, yeah. You want to speak, Tyler, after? Okay, the boss speaks first. Okay.
Hello, my name is Lori Phelan. With the passage of the new California state law regarding accessory dwelling units, we were filled with hope and joy that many years after yearning to put a place on our property that had been answered. My husband and I own a single-family home in Escondido, R1. It's on 10,000 square foot lot and has a considerable amount of available land. However, we're not able to build because the fact of the current Escondido Municipal Code only allows attached. The detached are in the historic district, which I'm really curious why it's only in that area. But we've tried to accommodate the attached to our home, but the way our land is structured, we wouldn't be able to do that. So our only option is to build behind a detached unit where there's open usable land. This ADU would allow our parents to move closer to us and help us with desperately needed childcare, as well as providing an affordable option for them, because they live nearly 7 hours away, and moving to San Diego County has been very difficult due to the rising home prices with fixed income, and they're also disabled veterans. So this state bill was designed to help multi-generational families come together, provide more affordable housing, as well as defeat some of the obstacles. And it clearly states in the California Assembly bill that the accessory dwelling unit can be either attached or detached from the existing dwelling, as long as it's located on the existing property. I'd also like to note that due to changing trends in demographic, economics, immigration, and cultural preferences, single-family detached homes have been more than doubled since 1950. But not only are the houses larger, but so are the lots. If ADUs can be added to existing housing, the current infrastructure could more efficiently be used to increase housing supply, as well as stabilize or even reduce housing prices. Moreover, since ADUs are by definition smaller than existing dwellings, they attract both younger and older residents who will enrich the intergenerational composition of both urban and suburban communities. Now, the state law has come as a blessing to those who have unsuccessfully been able to build, but due to the cumbersome local laws. However, the passage of the state bill does not provide relief to homeowners if local ordinances are unwilling to make the necessary changes or continue to add barriers. We desperately urge the City Council to change the current Escondido Municipal Code so that not only we're able to build a detached unit on our home, but also that the new state laws are adopted in terms of parking, the AUD size increases, permit cost reductions, etc. This would be a great service to our community and those who seek affordable housing at a time where California home prices have drastically risen. We understand building code setbacks, property lot sizes have to be taken into consideration, but allowing the second home to be detached would be a significant benefit to all residents. And we appreciate your consideration, hope the decision will be made to take into account the challenges we currently face, as well as opportunities the new state bill will provide. And lastly, this is an item that we're passionate about, and we'll continue to urge the City Council to adopt the state laws, as well as educate Escondido residents on the new state laws and seek help and guidance from the state level to provide assistance at the local level. And with that, if I could just provide a copy of this, as well as some information to each of the council members, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. Tyler.
While Tyler's making his way up, I'm just saying you should run for city council. That was very impressive, very well delivered, and I listened to a lot of people speak, and I'm really impressed by you. So there you go.
I'm trying to get done in 3 minutes.
She was awesome.
How are we doing? I was commissioned to speak. I wasn't necessarily prepared.
Okay.
So I apologize. So just kind of adding on to what my wife was saying, as far as Assembly bill that has already been passed and adopting as of January 1st of 2017, emphasizing the necessity for the detached unit on our property as far as our layout of our property. She's prepared some of the cities that have already adopted this: City of San Diego, City of Carlsbad, City of Vista, Oceanside, Poway, San Marcos, Encinitas, and Chula Vista. Most of them with 10,000 square feet as far as the full amount of the property needed to add that additional dwelling unit. So there's also multiple cities, outside of San Diego here: Riverside, Santa Cruz, Dana Point, Chino, San Carlos, Redwood, Manila Park, Santa Cruz. So there's a plethora of them. So I think the main point of our contentions today is just to request that the City Council look at the detached portion as well for something that definitely would help us, and as far as our family and adding additional revenue. I think it was also not mentioned as just regular companies and businesses in local San Diego, breakfast on Sundays and grocery stores and all those kind of things, and adding this additional part to the city. So
thank you very much for your comments. With that, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to a council discussion. Deputy Mayor Masson first.
Thank you. I had a couple questions. Under environmental review, this is exempt from CEQA, but we're talking about enabling units to be added without CEQA. Is that? I'm having a hard time understanding that that's even possible, that you can go add an accessory dwelling unit without a CEQA review.
Well, I mean, we would review it for CEQA, but
within the ministerial process?
My feeling is there may be an exemption that would apply in this case. Certainly for single-family development, there's an exemption, and this could be considered infill development as well.
Yeah, the other thing is I'm concerned about stormwater and how they mitigate with the new permit for this new facility, and whether or not we could perhaps persuade Sacramento to exempt these from the stormwater requirements, treatment requirements.
Good luck.
Hey, it's a start, right? If I can get an inch, I'll take it. But anyway, it's going to be a challenge to figure out how to squeeze this in. You're doing hydromod, you're doing treatment and everything else. So I see that as becoming problematic. The other question I had, so the state lays down these ultimatums. Where do we have the flexibility of control or managing, how these things, fit into our community? It sounds like some of these things are just mandates, right? So we don't have much control over it. Where do you see us sort of being able to manage?
Well, again, I think we'll be exploring that.
Okay.
Certainly, we have an understanding of some of the local concerns where the state obviously doesn't take those into consideration. So we're going to see where we can meld those and come forward with an ordinance that meets both.
Okay. And then lastly, I think I agree with Doug. I think we need a tiered system for if you have an acre, you can build a larger unit. It just makes more sense.
It does make more sense.
Councilmember Morasco.
Okay, thank you very much. So other comments, questions, things you may want to jot down as far as the Planning Commission subcommittee is concerned. Again, reiterating what Mr. Schultz stated in regards to the tiered allowance based upon lot size. Would that then also modify what parking potential demands may be as well? Why the reduction of the setbacks to 5 feet on both side and front? I know side has been 5 feet, but on the rear, and do we have any leeway on that as far as modifying that?
Well, we're in the process of looking at our residential setbacks as part of the overall bringing the residential zones into one coherent zoning article. So that's something we can take a look at as well as we get further into this with the subcommittee. So I'd be happy to take that forward.
Okay, great. Probably the biggest concern that I have are garage conversions. Any new homes that are built in the city of Escondido, we mandate that they have garages.
Right.
So how is it that we can then say, well, but once you've built your house, even though we've mandated that you put a garage in, that we are now going to say you can now convert that garage and you no longer have to have a garage? And what restrictions would there be on current drives as far as tandem parking is concerned? Does it depend upon the configuration of the drive, the size of the drive? There are some driveways that tandem parking would be impossible, but yet the garage could potentially be converted. What do they do in that particular case? Is the parking mandatory? And do we have any say as to whether or not the parking is covered or not covered? So these are just questions that to delve into. I know you don't have answers tonight. The size of the lot, Ms. Diaz brought up the fact that her and what she read, her interpretation was this is on any lot of any size. It sounded as though that some cities may have modified it so that there were minimum lot sizes, 10,000 square feet or whatever it may be. So I would be very interested to know what all these other cities of Poway, Carlsbad, Del Mar, San Diego, whoever they may be, even upside the state, what is it that they've been able to do and implement and modify so that we're doing what we feel is best for our residents in Escondido, not necessarily just something rote that the state has sent down. But again, the biggest concern out of all this is not so much attached versus detached or anything else. It's more the garage conversions and how that's going to wind up affecting us, because we've spent a lot of time and energy and money trying to combat a lot of illegal garage conversions that we've had in the city of Escondido and the impact that that's had in neighborhoods with parking and everything else that's been secondary to those illegal garage conversions. Thank you.
Councilmember Gallo.
Okay, well, some of the questions have already been broached. The CEQA question that I had, the same as John. I had a thought, let's say you have a neighborhood, and all of a sudden there's 10 applications for an additional dwelling unit.
A real one.
And, you know, just coincidentally, they're all at the same time. Now we're going to add 10 additional units to this couple of streets in this one area, and no CEQA review. I mean, I'm all for that, but I'm just wondering, how do you get away with it, okay? Is somebody going to rat you out, or, you know, I don't know how that's going to work. The other thing is the parking. You know, we already have a parking problem in the city, and now we're going to be taking, of course, these garage conversions will be a boon to mini storage places, because now the people will have to empty out their garage and put it into storage so that they can rent out the additional unit. Maybe slightly facetious, but I mean that's a distinct possibility. The setback thing, I can see neighbors being pushed out of joint when the guy next door wants to do an additional unit, and he only has to be 5 feet away from the property line. And the people on the other side, they're not going to do any additional units. And they say, well, the house is awful close to my yard. And I don't know how the fire service feels about this, but setbacks, I think, originally were established many moons ago specifically for the advent of a fire and a privacy between dwellings. And so that's one of the questions that I have.
Well, keep in mind the R1 zone already allows a 5-foot setback on one side, so that is something that we currently have in the code.
Yeah, well, that's on the what do you call that? Zero lot line.
It's 5 feet on one side and 10 feet on the other.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sure the subcommittee will take a hard look at this. They wanted this to come back because it's a little bit too loose at this point. So anyway, appreciate the opportunity to have the public come in and address some issues. And the one lady had a definite issue with parents. And I have to go back to the parking. It just popped back in my head. Let's say you have a 640 square foot unit, and mom and dad want to have their kids move in with them because they can't afford to rent a place on their own or buy a home or do whatever. So they're going to have 2 cars, and mom and dad has 2 cars, and maybe they have another son or daughter living at home, so that's another car, that's 5. And they converted the garage, so they took some parking away already, and how do you, and that's for you guys to figure out, you know, so.
Okay, Councilmember Diaz.
Thank you. The timeline is of concern to me. We've kicked it back now to a subcommittee, or we're about to. I don't want them to sit on this for 6 months or get overwhelmed with it. They get one shot at it. They got to move it fast and bring it to us because we can make decisions. You know, we're ready for it. So, what is your proposal or your ideal for them to complete their task to kick it back to us?
We're going to start immediately. We have the subcommittee already selected. We're ready to meet with them as soon as we can get a representative from the attorney's office that's available and able to sit in with us. But we expect to start immediately.
So when will we see it again? Well, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. I don't want it to go 6 months while the subcommittee is deliberating.
No, it should be within a couple months.
Okay, because I think that's a high priority that we get to where we need to get. And the other concern I think some of my peers here have expressed, what if the neighbors don't want you to build it? Right? This is the perpetual fight. Every time there's a project, the neighbors don't want it. Not just one unit. Sometimes it's a commercial business or a whole nother neighborhood development. So how we address that? Because it sounds to me, to some degree, that this is building by right. Like you have the right to build this accessory unit within the parameters that we're going to establish. But if your neighbor doesn't want it, are they gonna? How do we sue you, or what do they do? Does it become a civil matter? I just don't want the city getting in the middle of neighbors fighting each other over this development. And when somebody develops an accessory unit, Do they have to come to us for approval at all, or is it all going to be administrative?
No, the state law requires a ministerial process, so
Okay.
it'll be fairly immediate.
So when people get mad at you, we're going to get the emails. So it still kind of matters to us that we think this through correctly and everybody understands.
Let's let one council member at a time, please.
So timeline is important to me. I would like it to move as fast as we can move it so that we don't drag it along.
Okay. I do understand what the state is coming from. The state has created the housing crisis, and now they are imposing on local government how to do it. Why they want to impose on us where we have presented a general plan to the public, you the voters, and have voted the general plan. You agreed to the vision of the city. Now the state is trying to impose on us. The housing crisis is well justified, and I totally understand where, the mother-in-law or a family member wants to live with you. It's totally justified. I don't have any problem with that. But the overregulation of the state, the stormwater drain, the building codes, now they're trying to add prevailing wages to housing, which will add $55 a square foot to the cost. And now, no surprise that the median house is, as of yesterday in San Diego, $525,000. I don't know how many can afford 525. I fact checked it as well, so it was in yesterday UT. The affordability index went down from 45% a few years ago now to 10%. Only 10% of San Diegans can afford housing. I totally understand that. But I think a big part of this, to bring this crisis, is the state. The state has put us in this situation, and now they want to. This solution is not going to help our quality of life. I know that people come and oppose developments, building houses. Now we're building houses not in a planned approach. It's a haphazard approach, and I think I do have a concern that when we approve housing, we ask to mitigate everything: parking, traffic, school fees, public safety fees, libraries, parks. We do. And then those, do they meet these standards or not, Bill?
They won't have to, no. I don't think they allow us to charge fees.
I'm sorry, this is a tough, I know it's an unfair question, but that's my concern. We have a building requirements, as Councilmember Morasco said. We required something from the new development, and now we're setting a different standard under this new law.
The types of fees we can charge are limited, and so we'll bring back a clearer understanding of those to you when we come back.
The setbacks, in the rear from 15 to 5. So you're going to see your neighbor, Normally, we did our zoning code to make sure we maintain a quality development. We allow the second dwelling unit on the premises. But now, 5 feet, you're going to see it from your neighbor, from the street. No setbacks, no privacy. What about the parking? We have been dealing with the parking issues in the downtown, and you have seen the members of the public coming and complaining that they have to park a block and sometimes 2 blocks away because their streets are overcrowded. I am concerned about the overcrowding, but we could have done it in a more reasonable way. A testimony of the couple that they have been here, they want to do it. I think it's a reasonable thing. 10,000 square foot was a norm 5 years ago. Now 10,000 square feet lot is unacceptable because it's just we need to build more homes. I think the restriction from the states is too harsh, unplanned, will not improve our quality of life. But my position will be to have an ordinance, a revised ordinance, to just meet the state requirements or not more. I don't want to add any more, and I don't know how to mitigate the public safety, the schools, the infrastructure. This is going to be a problem. This is going to impact our quality of life if it is done on a larger scale, not on a case by case basis. So it's gonna impact when you have 2, 3, 4 families living in one house in one house, in one place, it's going to be a problem. So this will come back to us, but now I hope the Planning Commission would look into this and make sure at least we maintain the spirit of our general plan and the desire of the voters that they have approved our general plan, and do what we can to mitigate this overreach from the state in our land use. Land use should be purely with the local government, the city council, not with the state. Now the state, they want to regulate our life, our policing, our land zone. What is left? You know, we might as well be under the state regulations and just go and do something else here. This is not right, because it's not about the city council here. It's about the people who elect us. They elect us to represent them and maintain their quality of life, keeping them safe and do everything. Where does it end with this state overreaching to local government? They create crisis, and now they have to dump it, whether it's the homeless situation, whether it's the housing crisis, whether it's the public safety, whether it's illegal immigration, whether it's criminals, everything. They create this and they come and impose this on us. You know what? The state is going in the wrong direction, and Californians are going to suffer because of that. We need to have a more reasonable approach and let local government, and let SANDAG and the local government make this determination. We are the local elected officials. Whoever is in here, they should make this decision for the public, because we are closer to you. We understand the landscape of the city and the needs of the city than having somebody in Sacramento who doesn't have a clue. Now, even their constituents are pushing back on the affordability housing that has been created by them, and now they are on a crisis mode, reacting to crisis. How can we provide more affordable housing? So we're going to see more of that, but anyway, we have to deal with it the best we can, and hopefully we can come up with a reasonable approach from the Planning Commission.
Mayor Bed, I am not objecting. I think this is a great idea. How we do it is now not on our own terms, so we're going to make our way through a process, but I haven't heard any objection to the idea of an accessory unit. I think it's overall good, and so the reason we're spending all this time going back to Planning Commission is so that we craft a policy that does meet Escondido's needs as best as possible. I'm looking forward someday to building one on my property, except I have an HOA that apparently I need to go through, so I'll do that. But Bill, do you need us to vote on this? It says refer. I don't know if you need a motion or anything.
No, it is just an information item from the staff to put us on alert and give direction to for this to go through the proper process, which is Planning Commission. But I cannot measure the opposition of the people by I don't know how many people understand what we have in front of us. But I do understand every time we try to approve more housing, people come up in arms and oppose pretty much every development in the city. So this is a very tricky situation. I hope we can achieve some goals to address parents and family members who cannot afford to buy a new house, to be with their family, at the same time maintain a good quality of life in our city. So that's a general comment, and I hope we can manage that situation. I believe we have had a good input from the 5 council members, and I'm sure that Bill Martin will communicate those. Yeah, we'll communicate those to the Planning Commission. Council member Masson first, and we'll go to you. Yes.
Thanks.
Deputy Mayor.
Two questions, or maybe one's less of a question. How does Prop S affect this, or does it? Does state law trump Prop S? Because we're really changing density, residential density.
Wow, that's a good question.
It would have no effect on Prop S because we would not be proposing to change general plan designations to a higher density.
But you are increasing density.
But you're just increasing density within the general plan.
Still, yeah, but it would not affect Prop S.
Good. And then the last thing, what about these folks here? Are they in a state of influx, not being able to do anything, or can they go ahead and start working with your team on a project?
What we've been telling people who are seeking things that we currently don't allow, like units larger than 640 square feet or units that are detached, is please bear with us, give us a little bit of time. We're going to try and help you out. And so that's kind of in the position we're in now. Okay. If they meet our current requirements, we're happy to move them through the process as quickly as possible, but we're just seeking a little time to work with them.
Good input from the council and good input from the public. Sorry, Councilmember Morasco. Second round.
Just real quick, I know I read it somewhere, but I couldn't find it in regards to sprinkler systems, et cetera. Do you recall what this may have stated in regard as far as the either the garages or the detached or unattached homes?
My understanding, briefly, is that if sprinklers aren't required for the primary residence, then they can't be required for the accessory dwelling unit.
Was that your situation, Doug? I thought you had to put sprinklers in regardless. They just changed that. They did.
Okay.
But so if there are sprinklers in the house and they convert a garage, they have to put sprinklers in the garage?
Only if they're required in the house.
We changed the requirement. Chief Lowry was still here when he took that out of the fire code as a non-critical, yeah, so
Great.
that was
Right.
maybe 2 years ago.
Oh,
Thanks.
okay, Councilmember Gallo, last word. No stories.
Real quick, about 25 years ago or so, there was a subdivision planned behind Kit Carson Park. And one of the models was a 2-story home with a 2-car garage or whatever, and a carriage house on top. They were already built. Then the city came by and said, "Whoa, no, we don't allow those." So they had to take the carriage house off. There was 4 different models. This is where, behind Kit Carson Park, the subdivision. Would we consider allowing that in the future? Since we're going to allow accessory units, why not allow a carriage house on top of the garage? It was just one big room is all it was.
Actually, we already have, and you already have as well. In the old Escondido neighborhood, we're now allowing detached accessory units as carriage houses off of the alleys, which historically were present there.
Yeah, I'm talking about new subdivisions.
That's something that we can consider as part of this update.
Yeah, okay.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody, for the input. We have a clear direction, Mr. Martin. Okay, great. Thank you. Go on to item 14. 13, amendment of the 2012 Bicycle Master Plan to include Class 4 bikeways as part of the Bicycle Master Plan Missing Link Project. Staff report, please. One story at a meeting only. Limited dwelling units. Okay.
Should we wait or?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Honorable Mayor and council members, good evening, everyone. My name is Miriam Jim, Associate Traffic Engineer, and I have with me today is Charlie Swinger from KOA Corporation. He's the design consultant for the Missing Link project. And we'll be presenting item number 13 on the agenda, amend 2012 Bicycle Master Plan to include Class 4 bikeway cycle track as part of the Missing Link project. Just some background on the City Bicycle Master Plan. It was originally adopted in 1993. And in 2012, there was an update, was approved by Transportation Commission in March 2012. And then it was adopted by the City Council in October 2012. In the 2012 Bicycle Master Plan update, it identified the needs for the Missing Link project to connect a gap between Escondido Creek Bike Path and the Inland Rail Trail on Queens. And as part of that project, it proposed Class 2 bike lanes along North Broadway, and then a Class 1 bike path along the sidewalk of the north side of West Valley Parkway. And then the Class 1 bike path would continue on west of Center City Parkway and south of the Escondido Creek to connect to Inland Rail Trail. Since the adoption of the Bicycle Master Plan, California has adopted new bicycle classification. That's Class 4 bikeway cycle track. That was adopted in September 2014. And there are now a total of 4 different classifications, as you can see in the slides. Class 1 bike path, Class 2 bike lane, Class 3 bike route, and then the Class 4 bikeway cycle track. Cycle track characteristics is an exclusive bike facilities located on the roadway that has separation from the vehicular traffic and is distinct from sidewalk. It can be one way, just like bike lane on both sides of the street, or it could be two-way cycle track. A two-way cycle track allows bicycle movement in both directions on one side of the roadway. This picture kind of gives you an idea, how a two-way cycle track would look like on the street, on the existing roadway, adjacent to the sidewalk, and it's with some kind of separation between the traffic and the bikeway. And according to California bikeway design guidelines, the separation may include grade separation, flexible posts, inflexible barriers, or even on-street parking. A two-way Class 4 cycle track could look similar to a Class 1 bike path, but they're actually different in two main ways. Class 1 bike path is separate from the roadway, but Class 4 bikeway cycle tracks is within the roadway. And Class 1 bike path is actually a shared use facilities for bicycle, pedestrian, and other motorized travel. But Class 4 is exclusively for bicycle use. And bikeway cycle tracks has gained popularity in recent years. Many cities in California has installed bikeway cycle track and are planning to install more, including our neighbor cities, City of San Diego, LA, Long Beach, San Francisco, just to name a few. Urban Bikeway Design Guide identifies some benefits of Class 4 cycle track. Includes a dedicated and separated space for bicyclists by improving perceived comfort and safety. It reduces the risk of dooring compared to a bike lane, and relatively low implementation costs when utilizing the existing roadway, pavement, and drainage. And it's more attractive to arrive.
Let me ask you, what does dooring mean?
They open the door and you smack it.
Yeah, if the bike lane, you have the parked car right next to you, then you have the door.
It's called dooring? Okay.
And the Class 4 bikeway cycle track is more attractive to a wide range of bicyclists at all levels and ages. Spectrum Missing Link Project. City is privileged to receive an active transportation program grant in March 2015 to fund the design and construction of the project. City Council authorized the grant funding agreement with SANDAG in August 2015. And later on, we brought on KOA Corporation. City Council awarded the consulting agreement with them in 2016, January last year. KOA has extensive experience in bikeway planning and design in Southern California, and we think that they can help us, especially navigating this new concept in our city. The current project proposed Class 4 cycle tracks, as you can see on this slide. Starting from the Escondido Creek bike path, there will be a Class 1 bike path from Woodward to just south of Escondido Creek. A new bridge will be built over the creek for the bike path. Then the bikeway will continue as a Class 4 bikeway cycle tracks along the west side of North Broadway, and then running north on the north side of West Valley Parkway to Center City Parkway. Then the bikeway will continue as a Class 1 bike path running west of Center City Parkway, south of Escondido Creek to meet Inland Rail Trail. Now I'm going to have Charlie to go into a little bit more details about the project.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. My name is Charlie Schwinger, and I'm a senior engineer with KOA Corporation. You have in the graphic before you what the cycle track would look like on Broadway. We're leaving the existing sidewalk in place adjacent to Grape Day Park. Then we have the two-way cycle track, and then a striped buffer with flexible bollards to provide a vertical separation, and then parallel parking. And you can see in the top photo on the right the existing diagonal parking, and then on the bottom what the parallel parking would look like. Another change that's part of this project is to relocate the existing crosswalk across Broadway that's at Pennsylvania and move it north to Sherman Place in front of the San Diego Children's Discovery Museum, and to signalize it. And we believe that's important. If you've ever watched the people crossing there, they get halfway and they're kind of stuck until the traffic clears. So this will be signalized, and that'll be a safety improvement. The new location for the signal will be about halfway between the new signal at Woodward and the signal at Valley Parkway. So it'll be ideally located. And you can see on this graphic, the blue represents the current bus stop, and we'll be moving that closer to the proposed crosswalk location. And you can see the little red stripes where we're having the parking setbacks so that we have adequate visibility for the pedestrians, and clearance for fire hydrants. And you can see the number of parallel parking spaces then that will be provided. On this graphic, we're showing the existing bus stop that's on Valley Parkway, and then how that will interface with the proposed cycle track. We'll have the cycle track ramp up to the sidewalk level and then yield to the pedestrians as they get off of the bus. And we've visited with North County Transit District about this, and they're on board with that idea. This is a depiction of what the cycle track would look like on the west side of Center City Parkway, and what it would look like on the south side of Escondido Creek. Oh, go back? Oh. Yeah.
What's the yellow stripe going down the middle?
That's a leftover from Google Earth Street View. That's a leftover from Google Earth Street View. It leaves that in the photo. And this depicts the cycle track between the self-storage and the creek, and there would be a new fence put in between the cycle track and the creek.
Thank you, Charlie. And since the start of the project, we conducted public outreach workshop last year in June. And some of the groups that we reach out to, including Bike Walk Escondido Group, Escondido Compact, Youth Leadership Group, and Hidden Valley Bike Program. And generally, the public is in favor of the project. And one thing I want to point out is they especially like the fact that the new cycle track is going to be exclusively for bicycle use, therefore reducing the conflict between pedestrians and bicyclists using the same path. We also presented the project to City Appearance Committee in April this year and getting their feedback and inputs. Transportation Commissions voted to recommend their approval of including Class 4 Bikeway cycle track as part of the Missing Link project at their August 2016 meeting. Staff recommendations: City Council adopt Reso number 2017-52 to amend the 2012 Bicycle Master Plan to include Class 4 Bikeway cycle track as part of the Missing Link project. And City Council approved the relocation of crosswalk on North Broadway.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't have any requests from the public to speak on this issue, so I bring it back to the council discussion. Councilmember Masson.
Thanks. I have a quick question. Can you turn it back to the overall slide that showed the pathway for the connection?
He's going to want to change it.
I just have a question. Right? Yeah, that one right there. So they're coming west down the creek, and they're going to turn right, and they go to a new signal on Woodward, and then turn left. Why don't we put the bike lane on the east side of Broadway so they don't have to do this cattywampus thing and just go straight south and then cross at Valley?
Well, we consider that, but if you think about Broadway, on the east side of Broadway, there are a lot of driveways. There are three streets coming in, and then there's like George Burger and then two driveways from the museum.
Okay.
So you're introducing a lot of conflict.
Don't mess with George Burgers. That's it.
That makes sense. Thank you. And then the other comment I want to make, if I have my way, Woodward's going to get closed and go away when we expand our park. So just thinking ahead on how we might plan through that crossing and or signalization. I'd hate to throw money at a signal that's going to go bye-bye soon, but just keep it in your mind.
I think it has an impact on Sandag. I think we have requested the grant for $1.1 million, and if we go and do some substantial changes, we might miss the boat. I think we can always reconfigure whatever. Okay, Council Member Morasco.
Just wanted to thank you guys. A great presentation, great information. The update was very helpful. The modification of the different classifications of bike paths make total sense. Really like what you guys have presented. I like the the location of the where it's at on the west side of the street versus east side on Broadway, and the fact that it's going to be all the way down the north side of Valley Parkway, again, makes total sense. Looking forward to it, and I just hope we'll be able to do it in an expeditious manner and not too costly and not too delayed. Thank you very much.
A good testimony from a biker. So, Councilmember Diaz.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with John that it would have been nicer if it had just gone through the park, and we did talk about that. I don't remember if you were here, because we have been talking about this for a long time. There was a challenge navigating the other side of Escondido Boulevard and going through the shopping center, because the shopping center is built on top of the creek. So this was not my ideal, but I do really like how you've designed it. I appreciate all the thought you put into it. I want to talk about the signalization. In San Diego and in other places, but I know in downtown San Diego, they have signalization that's not the red, green, yellow, whatever. It's flashing lights in the ground that cause pause for the vehicles coming through. So they help with the crosswalk, but they don't necessarily stop traffic all the time. They only stop you if somebody pushes the button. So have we considered that? It seems like a little bit probably less expensive, because signalization is really pricey. Go ahead and answer.
Yes, we did consider that. The yellow flashing lights, the rapid rectangular flashing beacons, are not as effective because motorists think when they push, or pedestrians think when they push the button that they're protected.
Right.
And that's not necessarily so, because the motorists can go around through because they don't see the red light. So
the protected signal is safer.
Yes.
Okay. So they have been in use, so I assume you've seen studies about that, because
right.
I know in the past I've argued with our previous engineer, or maybe he's still our engineer. Is Ed still our engineer? Yeah, so about crosswalks, because I think crosswalks are a good tool, but he always says, well, if you're in a crosswalk, you have the false sense of safety, and so he doesn't like crosswalks because he thinks they're pointless. But in this case, I'm wondering, if somebody's going to run the light, you're not safe anyway. But that's a different issue. I just think that's kind of an innovative, less intrusive, probably cheaper way, but if you've already considered it, that's fine. And then barriers. So these lanes with the two directional traffic and the barriers, it does make you feel better when you're on a bike if you are protected that way. In other cities, New York City is fabulous for these two directional lanes. They use pots of plants as dividers, and then the plants are beautiful too. So these little green bumper things that you posted there, okay, whatever, you still feel safe, but they're not beautiful. And other cities have taken that as an opportunity to up the landscape image and the greenery and beautiful flowers and stuff. And with our weather and surrounding our park, especially surrounding our city hall, I don't think it would be a bad idea to put planters in areas and have them also be beautiful, not just functional. So I'm just suggesting that in case you haven't already decided. And then I don't know how you're going to keep pedestrians off of all of this. So what do you recommend for us to do as an information campaign to people? Because all of our like our creek trail, it's multimodal. We have to retrain our population to not use this as a space for skateboarding or pushing a stroller. So it's going to be a very enticing way to walk past all this infrastructure, and we're going to tell people they can't get on it.
Our bike patrol would be the best to enforce that.
Okay, so that's a good point. But there isn't any sidewalk on that new stretch that goes between our fire station and that's currently not an access point. So I feel like that new passage and shortcut might be an area where maybe we add a section, because people are going to walk on it, right? So we're not going to stop them. And there isn't an alternative there. The other thing, in one of the photos, the wall along that extra stretch of new path is going to get tagged. So we need to figure out how we're going to protect that wall, either with vines. I'm talking about the stretch of trail between the storage units and the fire station along the creek.
The storage unit.
Well, it's the backside wall of the storage unit. So you had a photo of it, if you want to scroll to that. So we're going to have to think about what to do with that wall, because it's just too tempting. It's just a canvas. So, but I'm excited. This is good progress. And when will we have this done?
We're anticipating to have the project out to bid by the end of the year, and hopefully construction start next year and finish next year.
The end of the year. That's a long time from now. Is that normal timing? Out to bid by the end of the year? Okay.
We still need to finalize the design and then get all the people packaged together. We're still in the process of the design.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Gallo.
Hurry up.
Yeah, I wish we could get everything done at the same time. You know, we just, you know, all it takes is money. I have to tell you that in 1993, I was on the Transportation Commission, and we reviewed the master bike plan first. And when I read through it, my comment at the meeting was, I don't see anything in here about maintenance. So I went back to staff. And I'll say the same thing now. We need a maintenance element in the bike plan, because otherwise, and the reason why I brought that up is because Bear Valley Parkway, it must have been late 80s, early 90s, they put a bike lane in there on Bear Valley Parkway. They cleaned it up. They paved it really nice because the cyclists were complaining that the roads, the side road was too dangerous to drive on, so they drove in the road. So the county paved another lane. Well, guess what happened a year later or so? The weeds started growing up through the asphalt because nobody cared. But there was a great photo op. All the talking heads were out there having their pictures taken with the new pavement and all this kind of stuff. You go out there, Bear Valley today, it's all the asphalt is gone and blah, blah, blah. Where do the bikes ride? On the street again. So we need a maintenance program to make sure that it doesn't deteriorate and all that kind of stuff. The flashing lights you talked about, Olga, again, I was on the Transportation Commission. I went out to San Marcos in front of Nob Hill School. They were testing these flashing lights in the street. I thought it was a great idea. I mean, all you had to do is you push the button, the lights start flashing, and then cars would be aware of the kids crossing the street and all this kind of stuff. Try to convince a traffic engineer that that's a good deal? No, they didn't buy it at all. But apparently it didn't work well because it's not there. I mean, they tried, I think it was a 6-month trial or whatever it was, but it didn't seem to work. And that goes on with your comments. I am very happy to see the signalization in front of the Children's Museum. And the reason being is every time I drive down Broadway, invariably I will see a mom or a dad or somebody with a little kid crossing the middle of Broadway. Instead of going down to the marked crosswalk, no. Human nature is look for the shortest distance between 2 points. And the shortest distance is walk across the middle of Broadway. And I always cringe when I see a mom trying to hold on to her little kid, and if that kid were to break away, I don't even want to think about it. So I really like that part. That's probably the best part of the whole project. Signalizing Woodward, I can take it or leave it. The parking on Broadway, we're going to be taking away parking. That picture that you showed, you had little bitty cars. Okay. I don't know if that... And it showed a lot of vehicles parked there, and I don't know what the traffic count or what the parking issue count would be, but I'm sure you're losing parking. And I know the Children's Museum relies on that area for parking, as does Grape Day Park specifically. So I'm just wondering, just take that into consideration to see what we can do. Huh?
Along Broadway? So
Yeah.
Look at that. Currently, there are 24 spaces. And with the new design, we anticipate to have 19 spaces with the parallel parking.
Yeah.
And assuming the 20-foot long, per policy.
And assuming people can parallel park, because she doesn't know how to parallel park.
I'll go park in my city council spot.
Cars park themselves nowadays.
And those are my comments. I think, eventually we'll have the bike trail done, and I remember making comments, I don't know, 15 years ago, whatever it was, and when we talked about the bike path from Eureka Springs to the Escondido Research and Technology Center. It's about 7 miles. And I made a comment then. I said, I can envision people riding their bike to work. If they work in the RTC, they hop on the bike, just ride your bike to work. Okay? And it hasn't happened yet, but maybe it will. And this is a big part of it. Thank you.
Great. Sandag has been doing a lot of great things for San Diego County for years. I've been involved for 10 years. And now, because of one faulty projection, the whole thing, Sandag is the bad guys. You have seen public comments. Nothing but political statements are made. Sandag has been working with the cities. We get about $3.5 million a year to improve our roads. We get grants, we get money, we get funding. We get millions of dollars from Sandag to improve our community. And I think I've been very proud to be a part of Sandag for a long time. I pushed for the Missing Link project. Sandag was approving bike path all over the place, and I said, look, let's prioritize on missing links, because that will make the bike path altogether more effective. We have 7 miles of bike path in Escondido, and I'm glad we are adding $1.1 million from Sandag to really improve this bike path in our city. This is under the active transportation program that we have received. I like the bike path. I believe now it's called Complete Streets, where the transit, the cars, buses, bicycles, pedestrian have to coexist in one thing. And I think you brought a good point, Olga, because people have to adapt to these new things. I think the bicycles are more vulnerable and pedestrians than cars and buses. And I believe we can increase the awareness with the public that those bike paths exist and they need to be protected. Pedestrians have to be protected as well. But yes, we have to be to work with the community to make sure they adapt to this new complete street things. You know, we are a public transit city. We have a public transit here in our town. We have a pedestrian-friendly downtown, and adding this bike path in our town, I think this is healthy. This is providing people with healthy lifestyles and other transportation alternatives as well. I like the crossing signalization of the Broadway between Grape Day Park. You know, Grape Day Park is the most beautiful park and the most underutilized park in our city. And the Discovery Museum, the Children's Discovery Museum, have been growing tremendously. And now they have talked to me several times about this crossing. I'm glad to see that connection so the kids can go and enjoy the park as well. So I'm looking forward to the implementation of that, and it's a good plan, and thank you for presenting a good plan to the council. So I have already a motion by Councilmember Diaz. I have a motion by Deputy Mayor Masson. So let's vote to approve this item.
5 yes votes.
Excellent. We move on to item of 14, authorization for payment to the San Elijo Joint Power Authority for Escondido's share of the San Elijo land outfall replacement project and budget adjustment. Staff.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Chris McKinney. I'm the Director of Utilities. With me is Angela Morrow. Angela is the Utilities Deputy Director for Construction and Engineering. We are here this evening to present to you some information concerning the replacement of the Escondido San Elijo Joint Powers Authority land outfall, and also to request your authority to pay our share, Escondido's share, of the replacement cost. Before we dive into the details of the project, I want to remind you of some of the details of what the San Elijo Joint Powers Authority is and our relationship with that JPA. The JPA was formed in the 1980s, around the time that Solana Beach and Encinitas were incorporated. And it provides wastewater and recycled water service to Solana Beach, Encinitas, plus Del Mar, and portions of Rancho Santa Fe. The treatment plant that they now operate was originally built by the county, and upon the formation of the JPA, it was transferred to the JPA. Escondido jointly owns with the JPA the San Alejo land outfall and the San Alejo ocean outfall. If you look at the aerial photo on the left, that shows North San Diego County. You can see the Harf and Escondido in the upper right corner. In the lower left corner, there's a small rectangle surrounding the project site. That's the San Alejo Lagoon near Interstate 5 along the coast. And then the zoomed in aerial shows the northern portion of the San Alejo Lagoon. You can see Interstate 5 in the upper right corner, and obviously the Pacific Ocean on the left. And that thick red line, that S-curve, shows the approximate location of the San Alejo land outfall. So I'm sure you're well familiar by now with the Escondido land outfall. That is a 14-mile pipeline from the Harf down to an area just a little bit to the west of Interstate 5. And I should clarify, there's an error in the staff report. I said that the San Alejo land outfall crosses Interstate 5. The Escondido land outfall crosses Interstate 5. The San Alejo outfall does not.
I thought that sounded...
I'm sure that was bothering you very much. So where our land outfall joins with the outfall from the JPA's water reclamation facility, that's where the San Alejo land outfall begins, and that is the jointly owned pipeline. That pipe's about a half mile. Where it crosses the beach, it transitions into an ocean outfall and continues for about another mile and a half out to sea where the treated wastewater is discharged. As a joint owner, Escondido shares the cost of operations, maintenance, and improvement of both outfalls, the land and the ocean outfalls. In fact, Escondido is the majority owner. We own 79% of the capacity in the outfall, and therefore we are responsible for 79% of the cost. So why is there a project? The existing outfall is more than 50 years old, and given the pipe material, the conditions under the lagoon where it traverses, the pipeline's at the end of its service life. It traverses an environmentally sensitive lagoon. Failure of that pipeline would very likely result in some severe regulatory consequences. If you look at the photograph at the bottom of this slide, the land outfall is underground, starting about the middle bottom of this image, and it travels out through the lagoon. If you see that channel of water running right down the middle of the photograph toward the beach, and then that's where it crosses the beach and transitions to the ocean outfall. So as Angela will point out in a few moments, there are a number of challenges, timing challenges, permitting challenges. Because of all that, the criticality, the sensitivity of the environment, Escondido and JPA staff determined that replacement now is the most cost-effective option. And so at this point, I'll turn it over to Angela, who will detail the project.
So the work includes the installation of approximately 2,500 feet of 30-inch high-density polyethylene pipe that will be installed by horizontal directional drilling. The new pipeline will be connected to the existing outfall at Cardiff Beach, the Escondido regulator structure, and the San Alejo water reclamation facility. The Escondido regulator structure is an underground vault. It can be seen in the lower left picture, the lid of it. The photograph on the right shows the connection point for the San Alejo water reclamation facility. The work also includes the replacement of the Cardiff pump station dual force mains. This portion of the work is excluded from Escondido's share of the cost of the project. The existing San Alejo land outfall will be abandoned in place once the work is complete and the pipe is operational. This project has many challenges. The existing outfall must remain in service and operational until the new outfall is complete. Connecting the new pipe to the existing outfall must be done during a very limited duration at a time of low flows, which is typically just after midnight. The majority of the pipeline alignment crosses difficult areas, including the North County Transit District railroad tracks, San Alejo Lagoon, Pacific Coast Highway, and Manchester Avenue. The project required 7 permits from different agencies. All of these permits have additional requirements, which increase the risk to the contractor and the owner. The project schedule is also constrained by several factors. Portions of the work cannot take place during certain months due to breeding seasons. Work is not allowed on the beach from Memorial Day weekend through Labor Day. One of the access points for the drilling is on the beach, so that means the drilling cannot take place during summer months. The project must be completed before the San Alejo Lagoon Restoration Project is complete, and it also needs to be complete for NCTD to continue on with their double tracking project over the existing outfall pipeline.
Is the Coastal Commission also is going to weigh in?
That's one of the permits that the project has already, and they have specific requirements for the project. So that's one of the 7. So the request for bids was publicly advertised for 8 weeks. There were 2 pre-bid meetings and site visits held during this time. 4 bids were received, ranging in price from just over $7.9 million to just under $9.9 million. The apparent low bidder was found to be non-responsive because they did not have the required experience. J.R. Freelance, the second low, is considered the lowest and responsive bidder. So as mentioned earlier, the project includes work on the Cardiff Pump Station force mains. When determining Escondido's share of the project, the cost for the Cardiff Pump Station force main work, which is $305,000 in J.R. Freelance's bid, has been subtracted out of the $8.553 million. The total project costs include the construction management, engineering services, and environmental monitoring during construction, and a 10% contingency for all these contracts. The total of all these contracts, excluding the Cardiff Pump Station force main work, is $9,953,300. Escondido is responsible for 79% of that total cost, which equates to $7,863,107.
So in closing, the staff recommendation is that you adopt resolution number 2017-62. Adoption of this resolution would authorize the Director of Administrative Services and the Director of Utilities to approve payment of invoices from the San Alejo Joint Powers Authority for land outfall replacement project work in an amount not to exceed $7,863,107. We expect that half of that amount, pending your approval, would be invoiced to us in May, and the remainder would be invoiced in early fiscal year 2018. That would be this September if the project stays on schedule, and it is very important that this project stay on schedule. The funds would come from wastewater CIP number 800079. That is the outfall maintenance CIP. We have been funding this CIP little by little for several years now through the regular CIP budget process. And in addition to the money we've already set aside, we are requesting that you approve a budget adjustment of $2 million from the wastewater CIP reserve into the outfall maintenance CIP that will provide all the necessary funding for this project.
Okay. Great. Thank you for the presentation. I don't have any public speakers, so I'll open and close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Councilmember Ed Gallo first.
Okay, that's Fallon Company from Escondido, right? Right?
The contractor.
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I'm glad to see Mark got the job. Quick question: where before the joint powers agreement, where did Escondido send its discharge? Do you have any idea?
I think it discharged directly into the lagoon.
You mean it went just into the creek and into the lagoon?
Into the lagoon, correct.
Cool. And I just want the general public to understand that part of your sewer charges, that's what this is for. Part of your monthly sewer bill. John, so you understand?
I'm on septic.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Son of a gun. Anyway, that all pays for all this stuff, and these are the kind of things that we have to have, and they have to be paid for, and this is how we collect the money to do it. And I asked Chris some questions earlier yesterday that answered some of my stuff.
Excellent. Councilmember Diaz.
Thank you. You mentioned that we're using 30-inch pipe. This is a replacement of the same size pipe that's there? There's no expansion to capacity?
Correct. It's an existing 30-inch.
Okay, so it's just, when we talk about the reclaimed water project, the reason to pursue that was so that we wouldn't have to expand our outfall, and by expansion, you meant a bigger pipe.
Correct.
And we're not doing that. This is the mini version of just maintaining what we have.
And it's a very short section. It's a half-mile section of a pipeline that in total is about 17 miles long.
So what about the rest of the 17 miles in terms of useful life? At some point, do we have to replace more pieces of it?
Well, with that pipeline, because we are we're continuing to maintain it, and the plan to recycle more water, bring it back into town, will allow us to reduce the capacity of that pipeline rather than attempt to replace it. We will be, at some point in the future, and this is a project that's decades away, we would be relining that pipe. So at that point, when that project happened, the relining would reduce the capacity of the Escondido land outfall. Okay. But we would be able to absorb that reduced capacity because we would be putting less water down that pipe.
Okay. I guess I don't remember talking about doing anything to that pipeline because we've been so focused on trying to take pressure off the usage. So it is what it is. I know it's expensive, but...
And that project is, you may recall when I presented the planned CIP projects as part of the overall recycle water and potable reuse program, there was a list of nearly 30 individual projects, because that project, that relining project, is the one that will occur last in time. It was at the very bottom of the list. But that is a significant project that we expect to be doing sometime in the 30s.
And I know it's expensive, but personally I'm happy that there's a pipeline and that our discharge doesn't go straight into the creek or the lagoon anymore. And sorry it ever did. So, thank you.
Councilmember Masson.
Yeah, just going to say that's expensive pipe, $3,200 a foot. It's crazy. And if you extrapolate that for 17 miles, it's over $300 million. Just unbelievable. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you for the work.
Patricia Bushman, please, I did close the public hearing, but I am going to reopen it this time. But next time, for any public speakers, you have to present the slip before the item is heard. So come on over.
Oh, God, we're going to listen to this.
He drops. He drops on that.
Thank you. My name is Patricia Borschman. Most of the questions I think were already answered by Olga's question about the capacity. So if I understood it correctly, it's an existing 30-inch diameter pipe that will be replaced with an a new 30-inch diameter pipe. And the capacity will not be increased, and in fact it will be decreased by the other utility projects that the Utilities Department is getting approvals on with the reclaimed water. Is that correct?
Yeah, go ahead.
This project, the one that we're asking for your approval to fund tonight, will not decrease the capacity of the outfall. It's a replacement. Lining of that pipeline was investigated, but one of the drawbacks of that was a loss. And it was very difficult, too, much more difficult, but it would also result in a loss of capacity in the pipe, which we frankly could not afford right now. The loss of capacity will occur in Escondido's land outfall, the much longer pipeline. In the 2030s, I hope that we'll be able to push it even into the 2040s. We will be relining that 14-mile pipeline. That's when we will see a decrease in capacity, and by that time we should have our recycled water and potable reuse program in place, so we won't need that capacity.
Yeah, to change the capacity, you have to change the whole line. You cannot,
So-
changing a portion, it's not going to increase or decrease the
Yeah.
capacity. So, okay.
My question is, because the mitigated negative declaration was prepared by the San Elijo JPA as opposed to the City of Escondido's utility department, I don't think it was noticed or advertised in Escondido. So I don't recall.
It's not, the project is not in the city of Escondido.
That's correct.
Okay.
So, but I was wondering if in the future, when we have projects like that, that are linked with City of Escondido projects, if it's reasonable to ask that public notices, a joint notice process be considered for projects like this, because there is an effect, and it's a lot easier for the public to understand how these projects relate, and it doesn't appear that there's efforts to, fragment analysis or piecemeal the project and everything.
Yes, we will follow the public noticing process entirely. We don't have that many projects outside our city, so it's a unique things. But we will put it on the website, inform the public as much as we can, because it is related to Escondido. Good point.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, close the public hearing, and then one question here. So we anticipated that cost ahead of time, and we have been putting aside money in capital improvement, but now we're short $2 million. So the $2 million is going to be taken from somewhere else?
We anticipated a cost to Escondido of a little more than $5 million.
Right.
So the bids came in, unfortunately, much higher than our engineer's estimate, and that's something, honestly, that Angela and I need to work on, is getting a handle on why our engineering estimates seem to be routinely coming in well below what the bids turn out to be. But as you said, Mr. Mayor, we had been setting aside money for some time. The $2 million is a larger amount than we had anticipated setting aside this time, but we do have sufficient money in our wastewater CIP reserves to cover this cost. I think what this increases the risk of is that down the road we will face challenges with timing of other projects. We might have to delay other projects by 6 months to a year or more, so that we have time to rebuild that revenue.
What about the other jurisdictions? Did they get the money, the permitting, or we're doing the permitting together?
The permitting was already secured. The JPA was the lead agency on the permitting.
And the other jurisdictions have the money to fund
The
it?
other jurisdictions have already secured their funding, to my knowledge.
Okay.
The JPA has
it's a lot of money, and it is just for a small piece of outfall. If it was in Mexico City, we'd probably require one permit and then done with about $1 million. A good example of the border crossing, they did their share, and you are aware of this, in very short period of time. Our part of the crossing took 3-4 times more and 3-4 times more cost. That's the cost of regulations we have to pay at some point of time. So 6 permits to replace a sewer outfall. So anyway, I have a motion already by Councilmember Diaz, a second by Councilmember Morasco. Please vote to accept staff recommendation.
5 yes votes.
Okay, great. We go on to future agenda items. Any comments, Council? Councilmember Subcommittee Report, Councilmember Gallo.
North County Transit, I already talked about the security workshop that we had, system security and emergency preparedness plan. Already discussed that. We also will be having a public hearing on the budget on June 15th in Oceanside. General public is welcome to attend. No refreshments will be served. We also had a public hearing for public input on all the route changes that we have to implement, and Escondido came out really well. We only deleted one route the 353, but we have three other routes running the same direction. So that was a cost saving for the district. And that's it.
Hey, Councilmember Morasco.
Just real quick, Escondido is part of JPA, the Regional Solid Waste Association. It's in association with Del Mar, Vista, National City, Solana Beach, Poway, and Encinitas. And I've never read this before, but the purpose of the Regional Solid Waste Association is to provide stable, long-term, environmentally responsible, cost-effective options for all aspects of solid waste, including recyclables and hazardous waste. And one of the newer additions to what Cal Recycle has passed down to us, to all of us at city level, county level, local level, businesses, residences, is going to be in regards to organic waste and how we separate organic waste out, how that's processed and everything else. Right here in Escondido, we have EDI, we have a company that is literally on the cutting edge of worldwide recycling and processing. And when their new facility, which is currently under construction, is operational, it will literally be the state-of-the-art facility of its kind with the highest tonnage capacity in the world. Don't know how long that will last because there's always a lot of progression as far as technology is concerned, but it'll be right here, not too far from us, a couple blocks away. I'd really like to encourage us as a council either to individually meet with or to have a presentation to see this and to go and walk the site to see what it is, because it's absolutely amazing what they've done. We had a presentation at our RISWA meeting, and they really have a tremendous vision and what they're going to be able to process and what it's going to mean for us. Pardon? I'm all for it, but we were... Great. It would be wonderful for everyone to be able to see it as well. And, you know, Jeff Ritchie is obviously, he's a wealth of knowledge and information, the best guy in the world, literally, to be able to tell us about this and what it's going to mean for us now as well as in the future.
Great. At our meeting in Sandag, 16 out of the 18 cities and county have...
Guess which two didn't?
Have agreed with our position that it is a power grab by Sacramento. Out of the 16 cities, can you put this slide? It was many cities, small cities with the Democratic council majority and mayors have agreed with us because it's disfranchise the small cities altogether. All what they have, let me finish it. All what they have to do is to give 42 voting power to the city council, not the mayor of San Diego, and then 8 to Chula Vista. And that will be 50. So the city council vote, not the mayor, and Chula Vista would have the 50 votes. All what they need is one friend to lead the policy. That's why only Chula Vista and San Diego B, the city council rep, voted against it. This is very telling. This is very telling when 16 cities, only 2 oppose it. Encinitas does not disagree with our position, but that's what the council decision was, and Imperial Beach as well. So the two cities that they want the power to be concentrated with them but I think that the testimony at the board meeting was very powerful. Everybody talked about how well this body worked together on a nonpartisan basis, putting money. I voted for every sand replenishment on the coast. A lot of people vote for our bike path, and it was a very good system working together. We do agree with one thing with the Assemblywoman Gonzalez-Fletcher in the audit, outside audit. I don't think anybody opposes that, to make sure we don't have any issues, and transparency is good. But other than that, there is no need for this bill. It's moving forward on a partisan ship through the committee, through the local government committee. It passed by 5-4, very narrowly, and also in the transportation committee along party lines. And we'll see what happens, but it's going to break down a good government that is working collectively together. So that's where we are on this. Actually, I led this effort myself, and I did the petition. We did the press conference after the Sandag decision, and the petition signatures was reflected in the vote exactly the same way. You know, if I am a state legislator and look at the 16 cities out of 18 opposing what I'm doing, I will back off. That would be the right thing to do. And we have our only safeguard is the governor to veto this bill. Okay, Councilmember Diaz.
I wanted to make a suggestion, which is a repeat of my original suggestion, that if you would like to try to attempt to suggest modifications, that might be a good strategy. You like the audit feature, I like the audit feature. Anything else that you don't like about it, if you articulate how you would change it, I think the Assemblywoman would consider your feedback. Sometimes when you just say absolutely no and you don't provide constructive criticism, then it can't get heard and processed the right way. That's just my suggestion. You don't have to listen to me at all, but I think it's a good suggestion to always provide alternatives that you would be happy
Right.
with.
I think the consensus among the 16 cities in the county was the only thing they agreed with is the audit, outside audit. They did not agree with anything else. So the consensus among the 16 cities, there is no need for this bill. If this bill is going to be limited to the outside audit, so be it. We will go and support it. So I think there is just, they're using the audit and the projection to really take over the control of this. Okay, we need to move on. Councilmember Morasco is, let me see here, Council Subcommittee reports. City Manager's report, quickly, we have the new City Manager's report, if you have seen it. It's reformatted, it's easier to use, you have links to the website, you have charts, which I love. I think it gives you more information, and I think I encourage the public to go and look at the City Manager's report.
It's called City Manager's Report for Dummies.
Okay. And with that, we don't have a briefing. Oral communications, I have two requests. Okay. I have two requests. Duncan McCohen. Thank you. Followed by Patricia Bushman. Of course, thank you. I'm glad I did.
Thank you. I'm here to speak more about this issue with these pet stores and puppy mills, but I'm not part of the animal rights groups. I'm not a member of their group. I'm an outsider. I just happen to agree with them. Seems that there's been some objections. I've seen some previous city council meetings. The reason you don't recognize me is I've been keeping a low profile. I've been mystery shopping some of the stores and checking a few things out. My understanding is that there's been some objections because we don't want to interfere with the business. But the stores tell me they're not getting their dogs from out-of-state puppy mills. They're getting them from local breeders. So the ordinance these people are asking for, which is simply a ban that they can't sell dogs that come from commercial breeders because of the conditions that they're kept under, would not affect that. So that objection is no longer valid. The other problem is they're saying, or you people have been saying, they're not doing anything illegal. Well, I have a little update for you on that. I inquired at Escondido Pets at the mall why a blue French bulldog was $9,000. And they said, well, it's showable. You can take this dog to dog shows. If you don't neuter it, you can get stud fees breeding it. No, you can't. Blues are automatically disqualified. That was a bold-faced lie. That's fraud, and that's breaking the law. So that objection is not valid. So the question comes up is, why do you object to that ordinance? It's not asking for very much. And I know it's been brought up before, and I don't want to dwell on it in Mr. Marasco's absence, but he did get $10,000 from the pet stores, 2 employees, and $9,000 from David Salinas, who owns 3 of these pet stores. How does that look? That was a full 18% of his entire campaign funding. Now, I'm not saying they bought and paid for him, but it sure looks bad. He's also not the only one that's been opposed to it. I think Ms. Diaz is the only one who hasn't opposed to it. I don't live in your district, but I will be campaigning for you your next election.
Okay.
So, again, I'm going to say, look, this ordinance is humane. Not having it and allowing these puppy mills to go on creates dog overpopulation. It's a problem everywhere and for Escondido. There is not one valid reason to oppose it. So we want this ordinance on the agenda, and we want to get it passed. We need the rest of you to straighten up and fly right.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Patricia Bushman.
Thank you, Mayor Abed. Today, I'm here to update you on an item and ask you about a second item. I'm here as a citizen and also as a member of the Escondido Chamber of Citizens. First, Escondido Chamber of Citizens was really impressed to observe that the council action plan that was adopted included an item to update the climate action plan for the city of Escondido, and that was approved with the general plan update in 2012. We wish to inform council that as a part of the task that you're going to be undertaking, a request that, that you consider allowing Escondido Chamber of Citizens, and we're partnering with other collaborative North County groups who are experts in climate advocates. There's a Citizens Climate Lobby and a North County Climate Change Alliance with, you know, experts, and Nicole Caprice and very respected, you know, industry experts who have expertise, you know, from the city of San Diego and in analyzing plans. There was a report done in 2016 in December by Nicole Caprice, was one of the parties, by a climate group that was formed to analyze all the action plans in San Diego County using the uniform analysis metrics. And that is a tool we're hoping to use as a method to help guide us in updating the Escondido action plan. They, since it's, you know, they applied a uniform standard, I think that some of the concerns you may have had, I don't think are going to be applied. That, you know, that there, you know, any penalties would be applied to Escondido, or anything, any standards would be applied in Escondido that won't be applied elsewhere. And they've already analyzed it and, you know, indicated areas where some certain improvements are needed. So it's you know, it's guided by an agency that's already analyzed everything. So the other collaborative groups are really interested in assisting and taking part, and I want to credit the City of Escondido for taking a positive action and then taking the initiative to decide that that's
when we update the climate action plan, we will include the entire community and we get everybody's input and expertise. So thank you for offering.
Yeah, and then the other thing is I wanted to compliment Escondido because you're taking sort of a leadership position in recognizing businesses that are providing leadership positions in the community by, like, TransPower and the being an advocate to support the world's largest lithium battery storage facility in Escondido region.
You're right. Absolutely.
So
I was there.
Hopefully Escondido can become recognized as a capital for green energy. And I know that years ago, Charlie Young from 350 approached the City Council with some proposals to consider community choice energy and other options. And I don't think that that there was, you know, anyone that was receptive to that, except for Olga. But some of these.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Thank you very much. Good point. So we are working together. We agree about the energy, green energy, and we are a leader. We'll continue to be a leader. Absolutely. Okay. With that, I don't have any more requests. With that, our next meeting will be May 10th. With that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.